Welcome, everyone, to our next episode of the Listening World podcast. I'm your host, Sara Joy O'Neill, and I am here today with Jacqueline Hollows, otherwise known as Mama J. And I will let her tell you all about her work and who she is. I know that she knows a thing or two about listening. So how about we just start with that, Jacqueline? Tell us wherever you want to start. What is listening to you, and how's that? Have you seen it show up in your work in the world?
Nice. Thank you. That's a good place to start. So, as I talk about my journey, this will have only come from listening. And I am a dedicated student of listening, even when I don't like what I hear. So listening brought me to a time in my life where everything had collapsed. I felt like an imposter in my job. I was really struggling on the inside, even though I looked successful on the outside. And I didn't make everything collapse, but it did collapse. And it gave me the opportunity to really listen to myself, to what I wanted. And I was aware that I loved the status and the salary of what I was doing, but I did not love the work at all. I was in IT and project management and customer service, and I really was, I was struggling. I just didn't enjoy it. But I sort of thought that's what life was like. You had to struggle, and then you die. That's what I used to say. And at that time, it was such a relief to lose everything, because suddenly I could start again. I got this opportunity. I mean, it took a while to get to that place mentally, but when I got there, I was like, I can just do anything now. I can start again, and I can do something I like, and I don't have to be worried about this upkeep of these houses and these cars and this lifestyle that I wasn't really even fitting into very well. And so I did. I literally had nothing, got a job, retrained as a life coach, just started to go experiment. And I met this world of people doing amazing things, people going to places in, cornfields and treading grapes, and like just doing amazing stuff around the world, helping people, making social change. And I thought, I want to do that. I want to do something meaningful. So I'd stumbled across this understanding called innate health, and I had some changes, but they were small, and they didn't seem like big moments. They were more like, I got over myself quicker, or I was in this difficult financial situation, but yet I felt okay about it all. So there were really almost subtle changes. I wasn't stressing so much. I wasn't thinking about my trauma so much. I was just living in a more joyful way. And I ended up then working with people in addiction recovery. And I found that I'd found my people. I just loved it. And that work led on to working in prison, which I did for 10 years. What's really interesting is that prison work became, again, my identity. So suddenly now I'm doing meaningful work for sure. It's being researched. I'm being called a pioneer. I am invited to speak at things. I'm this person, who's done this thing. And I started to believe that again. And so when that disappeared because of COVID, actually COVID killed the business, we pivoted. I worked with different populations, gambling and homeless and so on, but I wasn't feeling it anymore. But I really clung on, and I clung on thinking, who am I without that work? And then it goes back to listening, because eventually, I'm a slow learner, but eventually I knew this isn't what I'm meant to be doing anymore. I don't know what I'm meant to be doing. Again, I'm in this situation, but it's not this. And so I took the leap again. I closed the business in January 25, and it was heart-wrenching because it was my baby. It wasn't just my identity, it was my baby. I loved the work. And I closed the business knowing it is over, even though I don't like it. And that's what I mean by listening, even when I don't like it. Like, often I'll know something, it will be life's putting this in front of me, and I'll be like, I'm not ready for that. But because I'm a student of listening, I will listen to that and I will follow that. And so that's what I did. And almost immediately, within weeks for sure, I had this huge insight that wherever I go around the world, wherever I speak, whoever I'm talking to, people say to me, you know, how do you get to work in prisons? How do you get clients? How do you start a business? How do you take this understanding that has transformed your life into something tangible in the world? And I thought, well, I know how to do that. Why don't I just help other people? So then a new business was born. It's called the Impact Activator. And I now help people move from having a transformational shift where they want to share it with the world and change the world, to action and implementation, and to really see the practical and the pragmatic steps, but also see the things that they haven't shed yet that they need to shed to be able to embody that work. The beliefs about charging for things, or the beliefs about marketing, and the beliefs about sharing your message, and really have them get grounded in who they are and what they want to share with the world, and then go do it. Because the bigger vision is, when I had one of my guys who I trained in prison as a facilitator, who's one of the best facilitators I've ever worked with. He's an amazing public speaker. He's spoken on loads of events, and he went back to prison, and he went back to prison for a big crime. And he will be in prison for the next 17 years. And he will be a middle-aged man when he comes out of prison, and his children will be grown up. And this all happened at the end of 24. And I thought, what needed to happen to stop that? Like, what's missing? Why did that happen? And we can very glibly say, there's a reason for everything and so on. But what's the reason? Like, why? What's missing here? And I think sometimes the reason is, it gives you the opportunity to listen again and see what's missing. And to me, what's missing is, people don't know what they've got inside them. And if they knew, that wouldn't happen. If he could have gone to a library or a community center or online and got access to this conversation, I really think that wouldn't have happened again. He got lost, and when he was lost, he didn't know where to go. And so you have to activate all these people who want to share, so that there's more opportunity for people to find a space. There's a fellowship program that people with addictions go to. If you can be anywhere in the world, you can find a meeting. Anywhere in the world, you can find a meeting if you're a person with addictions and you need to go to a meeting. I want that for this understanding. And for that to happen, you have to activate all these people who have already got it. and who could make that difference. I went on a little bit then, but that's why I do what I do.
I love that. That's great. Yeah, in talking about your story and your journey, it's like there's this thread that goes through of listening. And a number of times you said you didn't like it, but you knew and you listened. And I'm wondering if you can talk a bit more about those points of listening. Like, what does that feel for you? How do you trust it? Yeah.
Yeah. I trust it. First of all, I trust it because it sounds different to my ideas. So my ideas are usually very big, very full, very exciting, have all sorts of complications, and they're very heady. You know, they're great, by the way. I have some great ideas, but they're heady. And I could like write a project plan, fill a room with spreadsheets. I could do all of this because it's like, yeah, wow, let's do that thing. When the life nudge comes, it comes very simple, very clear, no thinking really. And that's why I say a lot of the times I go, really? Because it's just like, do this. And if I don't do it, he keeps coming back. And I've just got used to listening for that. I don't operate there all the time, for sure. But I'm always like one ear open. I sort of carry on in my life and then on one ear open. And an example is one time I had a new prison. We had loads of funding. I had a team of facilitators that I was, trying to bring on. We were also training some of the guys who'd left prison. And so I did this whole massive, took me days, this whole plan of who would facilitate when and what couples they'd be in, and look great. It was really, really good. And days had passed and I was putting the final touches to this plan. Everyone's getting an opportunity. And I had the thought, you've got to do it. I was like, no, go away, thought. I don't want to do it. Look, I've got to, I'm responsible for bringing in more funding. I've got to bring in more contracts. I need to be freed up from that. I don't need to do this. This is not for me to do. No. And it was just there. Well, you've got to do it. And I just knew. It was just so simple and so normal and completely against what I thought all these brilliant ideas were. And so I was like, oh, okay. And I still don't know why that was the case, but it was 100% right. I then had 6 or 8 weeks where I was running a 3-day group every week with a different facilitator. So I ended up me doing it all the time and the different people joining me along the way. Can you imagine what that did for my own understanding? I almost, well, not almost, I was immersed in the understanding for that period of time because I had to be. I was running a group for 3 days every week. So the sense I made of that was, oh, I needed that. I needed that. Now, life knows what's going to happen. We don't know, but life knows what's going to happen. That contract ended just after that. It looked like it was going to be, in fact, it was COVID. It looked like that was going to spread out to all these places, and I needed this team. I didn't need the team because the contract ended, but I did need the grounding. Did need the experience of facilitating and seeing that room, and that came in later. So life is like, it doesn't waste any of the material. It takes all the ingredients, and it knows what you need, and a little dab of that and a little dab of that, because it knows later on this is what you're going to make. So I've got used to trusting that 100%, even if it goes against what I think should happen.
Yeah, I love that. I've experienced that, where I don't know why I feel like I'm being led for a particular experience, and on paper, or the story of that one experience doesn't look all that okay. I did a thing for a little while and then moved on to something else, but then 2 years down the road, I'm using those skills, or that added to that. But in the moment, it just seems so, you're like, okay, I'm listening. What? I love how you spoke about the feeling of life nudges for you. Sounds like they're quiet and sometimes, I'm not sure the word you would put on it, but not the excitement, not the like, yeah. Yeah.
In fact, it was a lesson that Michael Neal taught me, actually. It's that excitement thing makes me realize, that isn't what it is, because I go there very easily. I can get excited very easily, and I'm glad that I can, and I enjoy that. It's a bit like when I was working with Michael Neal, I wanted to know, like, if you can love anyone, how do you choose who to be with? And that was very confusing for me, because it was almost like, well, I can make any relationship work then, because it's like it's me, right? It's not them. So how do I choose? And he said, well, just the person that you want to be with, like that you have the most fun with. It was very simple. And I was like, oh, okay, this is not that complicated, is it? I don't have to make it work because I can. And that's a sort of pattern for my life, is that I've always been the person who pushed through, made it happen, strove, like did the hard thing. So that's quite hard to break. And then to hear, well, just like the person you enjoy being with, it's like, oh, okay, that's good then. So then I got married and I'm still with him. So well done, Michael Neal. But it happened recently as well. Maybe this other example can help reinforce what I'm saying. Is that, so I've finished my nonprofit. I'm doing this for profit, deliberately for profit, because I'm sort of going through this. Wow, people should be paid for doing their work, and they should be resourced. And I get invited to apply. I get headhunted basically for the role of trustee for a charity. And I was like, no, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not doing that thing. I'm doing this thing. But again, because I know to listen, I was like, okay, where's this going to go? And every step of the way, in the same way that I set up Beyond Recovery, in the same way that I set up this, every step of the way, I'm just like, okay, well, maybe this is the last step. We don't know. Maybe the only reason I've been invited to do this is to have this experience of writing my CV, which I haven't written for years, or have this experience of being interviewed, or have this experience, whatever it is, I know that there's some juice there, and I just have to follow the steps. And it doesn't mean I'm going to get the job or I'm going to do the thing. In this instance, it does mean I got the job. and I got the job as role of trustee for an amazing charity that works with young men at risk of criminal justice. So it's totally in my wheelhouse, of course. But all along, I'm thinking, I wonder what this is for then. And I still don't know, but I know that life does know. And it doesn't waste an inch. You know, like in some religions where they eat every part of the animal, they don't waste right. Life doesn't waste an inch of the experience or of the lesson or of the journey. It provides you with it because, and then you have to sort of trust that the because is worthwhile, and it always has been. So
I love that. I wrote it down. Life doesn't waste an
yay.
I told you there would be a brilliant saying.
Come on.
I love, well, it's funny, I'm loving this whole conversation because before I got to know you, you were known as the woman who brought the three principles understanding to the UK prison system. And I, like many people, just it's like seeing the end result of a bunch of things. It's very impressive. Oh my gosh, maybe I could do that, or oh my gosh, I could never do that. But what I'm hearing is that you didn't set out to be impressive. You didn't set out to be this thing that you then made your identity. It was following those quiet nudges and those just where the non-exciting juices. I don't need the aliveness without the
Yes. Yes. That's such a good point, because when sometimes people do come to me, of course, and they want to, I've always want to work in prisons, or I want to do that, or I want to do this thing. And it's not that I talk them out of it, but I know that isn't where that came from. That my thing didn't come from watching Kathy Casey and thinking, I'll do that. It just happened almost. I ended up working in the addiction recovery community because of someone that I met that I supported, and I loved the people. So I thought I'll help here. I volunteered there for 18 months. After 18 months, I started to go, this stuff works. Like, people like this inside out thing. Maybe I could make a business out of it. Maybe I don't have to work in an estate agent and do this on the side. Maybe I can make a business. So then I looked into social enterprises, and then I asked for a referral, as in the guy I was working with knew someone who worked in the prison, and I said, could you introduce me? And he didn't want to introduce me because he thought this stuff's all right for the families. It's not all right for the addicts. But he did. He introduced me, and then I went and met there, and I did not want to work in a prison. I was petrified. Honestly, I'm embarrassed to say that the first time I was escorted through the prison, I thought, what about if someone speaks to me? Am I allowed to speak? I didn't know anything. I was so petrified. And then I got massively trained and like keys and scary training about shanks and all sorts of things. What to do if you're taken hostage, what to do if you find someone who's taken their own life in their cell, all of this scary stuff. And I was left, because I was allowed now to walk around the prison because I had my own keys. And they said, oh, yeah, bye. And I had to walk from this gate to I ran. I ran, opening the gates, shutting them behind me, and I got to the entrance and I thought, and I want to work here? Like, what am I doing? What am I scared of? Exactly. So I had a ton of invisible thinking about the place and the people and everything else. It wasn't my my aim, but it was my calling. And you can't deny your calling. You have to overcome those things. You have to see through those things. And most people know the story of the guy who actually saved me, really, because I was standing outside. Would you like me to tell you the story?
I would love for you to tell me the story because I feel that some of the people who might listen to this do not know the story.
All right.
Well, I also don't know the story, so please.
Okay, good. So I'm standing, I've been trained, I've been through all that training, been scared to death by everything. I know all the rules. I'm standing outside my first day, my first group, and the room is inside the wing where the men sleep and live. And it's a group room. And it's smelly, it's noisy, it's like prison, it's like TV. That's what I thought. It's like, oh my God, it's just like TV. And that weekend, the men had been all locked up. This is way before COVID, when it wasn't a normal thing. And so they were all banging on their cells with their plastic cups, and they were all a bit like impatient. So it was very scary. And I thought, I'm there with my clipboard thinking, what am I doing here? I have no idea why I'm here. And a man came to me, and he was a big, scary man with a tattoo on his neck and big, massive brown boots. And he said, oh, can I come in, miss? And the one thing that you're not allowed to do is let anyone in who's not on your list. Because after everybody is in place, they take a roll call and everyone has to like be counted. So you have to call in, yeah, I've got 10 or whatever. So I looked at my list thinking, please don't be on my list. So, like, what's his name? So he told me his name and he wasn't on my list. So I said, oh, no, I'm sorry, you're not on the list. And he said, I just want to see the chicks. And in Britain, the slang for chick for women is chicks, right? So I thought, I don't know what to do. And I was scared. So I said, okay, because I didn't know what to do. So he comes in, he's big, he's scary, gets my flip chart, which is in front of the window, and moves it out the way. And I thought, he must be looking at the female officers who they all line the ground so no one escapes. And he looks at the window ledge, and on the window ledge is a nest. And the doves have been laid their eggs there, and it was like a prison nest. It was scrappy and dirty, and you could see barbed wire. And there were 2 or 3 eggs in this nest. And he said, I've been watching them. I'm hoping they hatch before I get out next week. Melted my heart. And not only that, it helped me to see the invisible judgments that I had. Even though I was there doing that work, I had all these invisible judgments. And I always say, I don't even remember his name, but he saved the program because of him, I was like, what are you doing? Just open your heart and see who these people really are, because they're not what they look like. They're not their behavior. And I knew that intellectually, but I didn't know it until he taught me. And I often used to say to the facilitators, I trained a lot of people and I had a lot of visitors. I used to say, you're not here to teach, we're here to learn. And I really meant that. I learned so much in my time there.
Yeah. I find those, see what I want to say. Sometimes I have different words that start dropping in as I'm speaking. And I would go, wait a minute, wait a minute. A lot of people that maybe just people who've never heard this understanding, I hear when things like that happen to them, or things that feel profound or synchronous, or the most common response often is like, huh, that was weird. And they move on.
That's right.
And so that would be an example of not listening, because it's like, have people just haven't learned what to, I guess, give value to, or what the feeling of something where it strikes them and they, for a minute, for me, it often will feel like a second or a minute of expansion of a space of a, whoa, that's something. And listening to that, paying attention and giving value to it, I think is, you can't go wrong then.
Yeah.
They will line things up for you.
Yeah. It's another great point, because I've had experiences pre-understanding the principles that I couldn't contextualize.
Mm.
And so I would be, one significant one, I was driving onto a slip road, onto a motorway, and I didn't believe in God. But I had a very, very religious friend who did, who was always talking to me about God. And I was driving down this slip road, and suddenly I had this experience where I was no longer here. I just had this, the car was filled with love. And it was like everything disappeared. It was an amazing few seconds. And then I found myself on the motorway and so on. And I rang him up and I said, I think I've just experienced God. But I didn't understand the principles. I didn't even know about the principles. So I didn't know where to put that experience. So my life just carried on. I didn't have any lesson from it. I didn't know what to listen to. It just was like, okay, that was weird. And now I'll carry on struggling. And you're exactly right, because what the principles did for me was it gave a logic to what is really going on, and what's beyond our intellect, and what's beyond our existence, or our experience, and that we can always be listening for that. So that experience now makes much more sense to me, because I realized that, I mean, I still don't know what it was, but I realized that, oh, I think I've always experienced this, but I was so much in my head, I just ignored those things. They were just like, can be written off, because that's not part of my daily understanding. Whereas now I can be in my head and I can have an experience like that, and I will listen better. And I still might not know what it means or why or what to do with it, but I know there's juice there. So I know to keep listening. And it could even be simple things like, I'm overworking, or I need to get outside and to get some air, or it just could be really simple, almost let's have a pause, because something deeper is going on here. And it doesn't mean I work it out. It just means that I get reset and refreshed. And then I remember who I really am. And I'm not the identity or the thing or the struggle with getting a client or whatever it is.
Yeah. Because we've mentioned the phrases, the principles, and the understanding a few times. I'm wondering, if are you able to just summarize that quickly, if there's listeners who have no idea what we're talking about?
Yeah. This is like the challenge of the day.
Right.
Okay. So in my understanding, in my experience, there is something beneath every human experience that we are part of. We are nature. We are the same thing as nature. We are the same thing as universal energy. And people throughout time have known this and tapped into it. And then there was a man who had an epiphany. His name was Sydney Banks. He had an epiphany where he realized that fact. And to me, he realized it in a much more simpler way than I've ever heard before, with all the gurus and the wonderful people. And he realized that we use 3 principles that garner our life, that gauge our life. And that's the principle of thought. That's the fact that we can have thought, not the content of our thinking. The principle of consciousness, which is our awareness of where we are in life and the reason why we get to experience life at all. And the principle of mind, which is universal energy, God, nature, however you want to describe it, but the thing that is beyond us and is us. And I love the principles because to me, they help me see how I'm creating my reality right now. And then they help me see that, oh, and I can have a different reality, not by changing what I'm thinking or by stepping into the circle of excellence or any of these tools and techniques, but by simply knowing that at a different state of consciousness, I see reality differently. And so an example of that is, in one reality, I might feel overwhelmed. I've got all this work. I've got to do this thing. I've got to go to this place. I don't know what I'm doing. I've filled my diary. I'm overwhelmed. I can use tools and techniques to ease that. Or I can simply realize, in this state of consciousness, I'm narrow. I'm not seeing the bigger picture. I'm feeling like it's all on me. And just now, I just heard the birds singing, which to me is like saying, yes, because when I lift my head up and my awareness grows or my state of consciousness changes, I hear the birds singing and suddenly I do get a different perspective. But it's not a forced thinking thing. It's more of a breath, remembering who I am and remembering that there is a solution, but maybe I can't see it from here. And all of that works because it's not on me. It's not on me to make life work. Life is working through me. And every time that I contemplate that or see that or remember that, none of it seems so difficult anymore. And people explain it in different ways, but I feel like it's the logic behind the system. And you can easily go, oh yeah, what's going on here? And then you see, oh yeah, I'm there, and you can do something about that. And it's usually not a thing that you have to do. It's whatever occurs to you in the moment, because we're full of wisdom and insight. I didn't even know what insight was. I didn't think I was a person who could have insight. I again, with Michael Neal, remember saying, well, I don't really have insight like that. I know. But I guess I have little ones, like, I know when I need to go to the loo or when I need a drink of water. I guess I have these little ones because the word insight had a big meaning and I was looking for the big meaning. But actually, I see that we're creatures that are full of insight and wisdom and guidance. And you don't have to do anything to tap into that. It's like, it's there. It's there all the time. And that's why people in prison can experience freedom in prison. Their circumstances look the same, but their consciousness has shifted and they're seeing their reality different, and they say things like, oh, I can do good while I'm here, or I'm going to make my time quality time, I'm going to learn something, and everything in between. Their circumstances are they're still in a nasty, horrible prison, but their consciousness shifts. And I think the two go together. I think that our job as teachers is to activate or awaken that spiritual essence or that nature essence inside people, and explain the logic so that they can understand, so that you can go back to it. So when you get lost, you know where you are, you know you're lost, and you can find your way home again.
Yeah. It might be one of the most useful things to know is where to look when you're lost, and to know that you're lost. And yeah, it also speaks to sort of the what we've been talking about this whole time is knowing the feeling of those life nudges, and knowing where you are and what to listen to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you can then navigate anything. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it takes a minute, right? So, in the day-to-day life of having a row with my husband, sometimes I takes a minute to go, I'm lost right now. Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. Time out. Because I'm in it. And I think I'm right, and I think he's wrong, and I'm offended, or whatever it is. But I always remember, because at some point, partly because I'm dedicated to looking there, but partly because that's what the human consciousness wants to do. It wants you to remember. When I take time out, I'm like, oh yeah, hang on a sec, I was lost there. And there could be a point. There could be a point that needs to be addressed, a thing that needs to be addressed, but it's never from that loud, argumentative, unhappy space. It's from a more neutral, less taking it personally. And there are plenty of techniques that can help you get there. But all of those techniques are really pointing to just a very simple thing that's already available to you. And the problem with techniques is when they don't work, we get lost again, because like suddenly now that's not working. What do I do? Whereas when you see the system, how the system works through the principles, you can find yourself all the time, every time.
Yeah. The example that comes to my mind makes me laugh a bit with how mundane or Bluetooth technology. I didn't understand it at all when it first came out, and then all of a sudden I had a phone that had, there's this button, and at this small gym I would work out at, you could connect your phone to play music on the speakers. And I couldn't get it to work, and I didn't understand it. And I thought it had something to do with the internet. And the gym owner, he basically gave me a technique without knowing it. He said, well, do this, do this, do this. And so I would do this, do this, do this. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. But I had nowhere to go when it didn't work. And I just, okay, fine. I won't listen to music, or I won't connect the thing I want to connect. Okay, fine. And then one day my husband, I think I was complaining about it, and he goes, Sarah, it's a radio signal. And immediately I went, oh, like everything as to why my experience was the way it was all of a sudden made sense. And I can use it whenever I want to now. And I don't need to apply the little technique. And so to me, if we understand the principles that run life, that run our experience, we know what to do. And yeah, it might take us a while. Last week I heard myself, and this has become my signal or alarm for you are lost. I will swear up and down that I do not have enough time in the day. And it is my kids' fault. It's my husband's fault. It's my, I will blame anyone my eyes land on. It's, it's your fault. I don't have enough time in the day. And then I'll go, oh, it's like life reminds me, or I remind myself, and I go, you know that that's not true. You know you're blaming people for you have to go apologize to all these people now. And I settle and I go, oh, I have a lot of time. It's ridiculous at this point because I find myself still that's what'll come out of my mouth. I'm like, oh, there's your warning. Okay. Listen to that one.
Yeah. My signal is when I get really forgetful. When I get forgetful, I know I am overloading myself. And I think I'm overloading myself because I need to be overloaded because I need to do all of these things. And then when I get forgetful, somehow that reminds me of, oh yeah, like you made that up. You created this thing, you made it up, and you don't have to. So it sort of resets me again. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, I feel like we've hit all the important things about listening and life and following what life brings us, even though we think we might want to do the fancy job over there, or I want to do the thing that's so exciting. But yeah, life brings us what is meant for us, or I think it's always better than what we can dream up.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Jacqueline.
Thank you.
And thank you to all our listeners for listening again. And we will be back next time with wonderful adventures in listening. Bye.